Hello guys, it is that Panda guy and I'm here again with another video, and today we are going to be going through a ton of hero combos, or at least that's what I'm hoping for, and I will be kind of explaining good hero combos, possible hero combos, and just what you can run. Hopefully this helps you guys in field combat, base combat, anything, right? Like I just think that, this is definitely a needed video, and I've been really procrastinating on delivering it. So first off, I will start with, I'll just start off at the top so I don't get like my freaking screws hit loose. So for Cynthia, I feel like it's really hard with Cynthia, right? Because in general, you don't want her leading the squad if you like have a choice of Catherine, because of course Catherine has a better talent build, be it skills, right? Whereas Cynthia only has like field as her secondary talent build, which is just less appealing. So if possible, it'd be good to run Cath and Cynthia, maybe, just that duo is pretty good, though it only applies if you are spending on them. In general, a Ryder's early game is really rough for people who aren't spending. So, maybe Synth and Freya, Synth and Park, those are possible runs that you could do. Cath and Freya, Cath and Cynthia, Cath and Park, just whatever. Like I know there's freaking you can run Freya and Park. I think Freya's a better leader than Park, by the way. If you are to lead with one of the two, it would 100% be Freya. Talent build really does like make a difference. If anybody doesn't know, skill talent build over field talent build any day. Like the rage build on a field talent build is just non-existent. It just doesn't exist, and it's disgusting. Next, we are going to be going through Jaden. Okay. Sorry guys, I'm like really out of breath right now. If you're to run Jaden, it's definitely a tough one, because I know that earlier game Jaden is definitely ideal and he's really helpful for anybody who wants to run him, because I mean it's easier to get his skills up. You get them from campaign, so he's definitely a really appealing hero, especially early game. I mean late game he's way less viable. I'm not saying that he's bad, he's still usable, though he's not as viable, and he's not in my top 5 squads because he just, I just have, hero choices now, and just makes him really irrelevant. But if I am to run Jaden, I will say one big like hero for him might be Charlie, for the single fact, like I said, he had an attack talent build, and Charlie is really good at helping, for just the fact that he's able to build up rage, and also having AoE will be pretty decent, just being able to dish out AoE. But the main thing is going to be this recovered 50 rage for every target hit, so it can recover up to 250 rage every time he drops this, and that's going to be really massive for Jaden, because in general Jaden is in a tough spot, because you can't even make him a support hero to have a better talent build. For example, if I wanted to run Lee and Jaden, that doesn't work super well, because if Jaden is a support, his skill damage gets cut in half from 9.6k. This is only if awakened. I think it's like 8k pre-awakened, and then like 4k down here pre-awakened. But overall, you guys get my point. It gets cut in half, which is just disgusting, and it's just super unappealing and doesn't work out. I mean, there's other like combos that you can run with Jaden. You can always run like I'd leave Seal after Akami for obvious reasons. Akami is a better field hero, but you can run Jaden and CEO, run them as a range hero, right? You can run Jaden and Akami, run him as a rage hero. I mean, you can always run him with some other heroes. I mean, not super appealing. I don't generally try riders, but you could probably run Jaden and Freya, Jaden and Park, and just make him a rider hero. Overall, the leader type tree is really appealing in like as a whole, because you're able to play way more flexible with the hero. That's why I also like love Lee, because overall he's a pretty good hero. Leader type tree, really good. I mean, only thing that could be better is having a skill talent build. But yeah, Martin is next. I will never recommend Martin to lead, guys. Never lead with Martin. Don't get him up past 4 stars if possible. All you need is to unlock his support tree. Like, he's literally built for supporting. If you can unlock these, that will be amazing. You can use him to support a tank like Regrill, support a tank like Tom. That is so huge. You can just make him support like one of these tanks. I feel like that's definitely one of his biggest uses. I've heard people talk about supporting other heroes, like just I've heard Bella. I wouldn't really recommend that. I've never tried it. I wouldn't know. But you just make him as a support hero, preferably towards tanks, because you want these tanks to be as alive as long as possible. Just making sure that they're sponging up damage. I'm sure that you maybe could use him with Thunder Peterson. I mean, I would say obviously, on Garrisons, though I'm not really sure because I'm pretty sure there are better choices like Tom or something if you're really, trying to tank something or defend something. But yeah. Sorry guys, I'm really out of breath right now. Like I think I just need water. But Hank is next. Hank, I've done a skill tier list, so you guys can kind of get an idea on how I feel about these heroes. In general, it's a hard go with Hank because if you're spending, you're probably gonna have Jin, and there's not much use for Hank. And even then, if you aren't spending, it's really hard to specialize or just get Hank up because you have really limited options in the game, right? And you really want to focus on heroes that can be as flexible as possible, especially if you're not a spender and you're not as like, you're not going to be rallying anything with Hank, etc., etc. But in general, if you're going to be running Hank, you have so many options you could probably run him with. I mean, you could run Hank and Peter, I suppose. I'm not sure how good double siege really works. I've tried running like Hank and a specific troop type a lot because I think that having maybe a siege build is good, as well as having a just specific troop type that you can send into this like rally, right? So like for example, Hank and Lewis, I've seen that a lot. Hank and Tom, I've seen that a bit for infantry runs. I'm sure Hank and Adot might work. I haven't seen that, but like if you get your Adot up, I'm sure that will definitely fare well. I'm not sure about this new hero. I'm not sure I'll really cover this new hero because I haven't really had enough experience with him. I'll try to cover Chun or something, but like that's the best I can do. Just having Hank and a specific troop type, maybe Hank and CO. I think CO is definitely more built for siege, so that would probably work, especially if you don't have range heroes. Because early game, you are capped off on what range heroes you are able to use. I mean, of course, there are probably better options than an epic hero. If you have like a ton of awaken heroes, you could probably like run, I don't know, Hank and just something else. Overall, you guys kind of get my point. Hank is very good at using most heroes as a support. I mean, if you're going to be running Hank and if you already have access to Bella, you're probably not going to be running Hank and Bella or Hank and like Steven. You could probably run like Steven and Bella if you're running range rallies. But overall, I think that Hank is pretty good with like anybody as a support if you're really trying to run specific rallies. Next is Lee Seung-won. Alright, so for Lee, I think Lee is pretty good in my opinion. So if I'm running Lee, I would run him maybe Lee Lewis. I've done this a lot. I've done this definitely a lot in my gameplay. But Lee and Lewis, run range, get that double AoE out. I've never tried like Lee in a tank or something. That is very possible. I mean, he is pretty flexible. I think Lee and Maya might work. Not sure how good that will be, but that could work. Lee and I feel like Lee, like these leader type like heroes definitely can run a lot more heroes with them. Lee and I think Akami would work pretty well just because one, she's an AoE hero. If you're really trying to specialize in range and you don't have Lewis or something, that would definitely work. If you're like limited on the options that you can choose as support heroes, that would definitely work. There's also Lee and Charlie. I definitely like this duo if you're really limited on your options for the factor that he's able to build up really good rage, as well as he is an AoE hero, but this rage build is definitely important for a hero like Lee where he's a damage dealer, so dishing out as many skill damage drops as possible are really game changing, definitely make the trades just that much better. And yeah, we're going to be talking about Peter next. I don't know how I feel about Peter in any choice. I feel like Peter is not really suited for field, and if you have better choices as a rally hero or a siege hero, then you're not really going to be using Peter often. But in general, if I'm to run Peter, I actually wouldn't know. I wouldn't know that well. Like I think he's like similar to Hank in that aspect. You could run the same heroes with him, but I'm not sure they perform as good on siege. They perform better on field than like Hank would, because Hank is not good on field at all, but Peter also isn't built for field, so it's just not really, there's not really much of a point. Next is Regrill. So I think Regrill could definitely work with like Peterson because heals obviously. Regrill and Martin, heals. You want these tanks to be alive as long as possible. There's Regrill, and I don't think there's many that you could run with Regrill. There's possibly Regrill and Alex. I will say for like in this case, Alex doesn't provide much to Regrill himself, but the fact is that you want, Alex to be on the field as long as possible if you are using him as a buffer hero, because you want to make sure that he's getting as many like of these skill drops as possible to, just buff these other heroes. So you want him with a tank, and yeah. There's also Regrill and possibly Charlie if you're trying to dish out his defensive buffs as much as possible. I mean, there's of course better people that you could run with Regrill, but it's very doable, and he is an infantry hero, so it's not like it will kill you to run Regrill and Charlie, though it's not like the most ideal. The same duels actually go with Tom that goes with Regrill, running Martin and Tom, Martin and Peterson, I said Martin and Peterson. Sorry, Tom and Martin, Tom and Peterson, Tom and Charlie. I think that this would actually be more efficient used on Tom. Tom and Alex. I think in the case of Alex and Tom, you would actually use this to give, like Martin or something to Regrill, and you would want to do this because I think I said this in my last arena video, but let's say that you're healing. This is actually just speculation, but let's say you're healing. You can get 1,000 heals off with Tom and Martin, right? Let's say you're about to heal those slightly wounded, and you only get, I think, 800 maybe, like actually wounded. Then you're missing out on those 200 extra heals, possibly, right? Like just theoretically, you might be missing out on heals. So it might be good to try to maximize as much of the heals as possible by spreading them out between the two heroes. I'm not 100% sure about like how factual that is, but in any case, that is very possible, and it could be pretty sucky. Next, we're going to go to Maya, or Nico Maya. Alright, so for Maya, there's always Maya and Lewis. There's Maya and CEO. There's Maya and Akami. I always prefer Akami over CEO when you're running with range. I, think that Maya leading Lewis is better. I've heard that the skill damage is actually better if you're leading with Maya, and there's like just something that happens with skill damage when Lewis is leading. It's really weird, and overall, you guys get my point though. So like Maya and Lewis, Maya and CEO, Maya and Akami, those are the only ones I would really recommend, because I mean, I wouldn't be trying to lead with a different troop type hero. It's just not much of a point, and it's kind of counterproductive. There's Lewis and Maya, Lewis and Akami, Lewis and Sia. It's kind of the same. I mean, there's also Lewis and Lee. You definitely can be way more versatile with this guy, because you want these skill drops as much as possible. I mean, you could always go like Maya and Lee. I'm not sure how I feel about the duo. I've never really tried it myself, and I'm not really planning to try it because I've already kind of put myself in a really good spot, so I don't really need to. But you guys get my point. Like I wouldn't use any other troop type hero with these guys that aren't suited for them. That's why you guys see, for example, with like Lee, I am way more open to using Charlie or Akami with them because he is a leader type hero, and that just makes him way more flexible. And it's not like you're penalizing him by using a certain troop type. You can use range, you can use riders, you can use whatever compared like considering like the secondary hero that you're going to have. Whereas with like Lewis or something, if you're using Lewis and Charlie, this is an infantry hero. It just doesn't work, and it's not as efficient as other heroes might be. Alright, next we're going to be looking at Bella. So I think that Bella and like Kath would work. I have heard that the skill damage would be insane, like for field at least. I wouldn't really try using these as like, a rally siege hero duo. I would definitely try like Sivel and Bella if I was going to be running rallies with riders. I know earlier game is like way less options, like of course you only get like Bella and Cynthia and Kath. But yeah, Bella, Sivel, Bella, Cynthia, I suppose. That's probably like my last go, I think. My last choice. Bella and Kath, I think those two would definitely be a monstrous duo considering like their skill damage. And yeah. There's Bella and like Freya, Bella and Park, of course, for anybody interested. There's Adot. Okay, Adot. I've tried running Adot and Tom. I actually didn't mention this earlier, but Tom and Adot are a pretty good duo, I think. I've tried them a lot in the field. I think that they're going to be a good rally duo if I'm trying to run infantry rallies maybe. So like running Adot and Tom might be really good, I know I haven't really tried other duos with her. I feel like it's really hard when you're choosing Adot because there are really very little options that you actually have to choose, or like there just isn't enough. Like you haven't really learned enough about Adot, and we haven't really tried enough. That I think like Adot and Charlie might possibly work. I'm not sure how good that will be. I feel like it's really hard to find a good match for Adot or just like a good pair. You know, like you don't have many pairs. I've heard that she's really good on the field. She is a absolute monster. I'm assuming like some of that has to do with her berserk like ability and just her high percents in general. But yeah. For Peterson, I've seen a lot of Peterson and Tom run on towers. I've heard like those two are really monstrous on towers, especially if they're both awakened. I haven't really seen much else run with Peterson or just anything like that. Of course, I think he'd be a pretty good support as a healer. So if you're running him in an arena or on the field, maybe Tom Peterson, Regrill Peterson, just using him as a support hero works pretty well, I'd assume. I'm gonna skip Maxine because she's literally just a gather hero. Don't fight with her. I've seen way too many people fight in the field with Maxine like maniacs. It's actually crazy. Sivel. All right, Sivel. I, I'm saying that all wrong. Steven though, but I don't know why I just like assumed his name was Sivel. Okay, guys. I'm actually like crying and cringing at myself, but. He's definitely more siege oriented. I wouldn't generally recommend leading with him on the field if you have like Bella or something up and you have like a choice. But there's always Sivella and Bella. I've seen that run a lot. I mean, I think Sivella and Kath would work. Sivella and Cynthia, like just the rider duos. I think a lot of this video is definitely oriented on heroes that people are uncertain with, like Lee or something. Like I feel like there's definitely more understanding for heroes like Tom, who have pretty clear like people you can duo with, like be it Peterson or Martin or just support. But overall, with like people who have leader type trees, it's way harder to decide. I know like troops that are more specifically troop types, or like you definitely have easier options. Like I think Siva. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm so sorry. Steven and like Bella or something. Like those are pretty obvious choices, but like they're all you really need. If you're running siege, I think that Steven and Bella are pretty good. Steven and Kath possibly. Steven and like Cynthia are possibly a choice. I mean, if you have them this late in game, I'm pretty sure that you already have those like options available. But if you really like want, you could run them with maybe the other rider heroes. Like these epic heroes, just possibly. I've talked about Kath quite a bit. Running her and Cynthia are probably pretty good. Bella and her might be even better just because of the high skill damage possible. Insane duo right there. There's also, Johnny. I don't really know a lot about Johnny. I'm not sure who you'd run with him. I don't have enough information on him and how good he might be. I think like maybe Johnny and Chun would possibly work. I'm not 100% sure. I think like if I was to run a rider rally, especially if like my carry is not upgraded, I'd probably run like Chun and Lewis. That'd be what you see. I actually didn't mention Chun when going through my rider heroes, but you guys kind of understand. I'd probably lead with Chun if I'm gonna lead with anybody. One, because of the skill damage thing about Lewis, and two, I wouldn't lead with Maya over her if they're at the same level, of course. And I think for epic heroes, it's way more self-explanatory. A lot of these duos are kind of referring to field combat or fighting. I don't really talk about zombies often, so I'm not really planning to talk about it here. But there's always it doesn't really matter who leads between CO and Akami, to be honest, but I definitely prefer Akami to be higher leveled, especially if you're trying to unlock someone's skills first. Definitely Akami. It doesn't matter who's leading between these two because their talent levels are the exact same, so it's not really important. But overall, those two can duo. You can duo with these other heroes that I already mentioned, and yeah, there's Captain Russell. I'd never use him on the field. I just would X him out completely. Do not use him on the field. If you do, I am shaming you. I am gonna message you and I'm gonna say, "For shamed, you dirty man or woman." We're not discriminating here. There's John Sunderland. I don't use him much. I've never tried to use him. I don't think his like talent build is very appealing. He's a siege type hero. You have better options. No matter what. I don't think that you'd really use Johnny. He probably goes like at the very he just has no use. He's not really useful in the field. He has very little like combat capabilities in the field. Don't really recommend him. And yeah, there's always maybe Liam. I didn't mention Liam or anything. I mean, you can always try running him with these heroes, but he's like less optimal compared to the other heroes that I mentioned. He doesn't provide as much. He's not bad. I know I said bad all year. He's not bad necessarily, just not as like optimal as these other heroes, or like offering as much as they do. So it's just not super necessary to lead with him. Or sorry, use him. But in general, if you're gonna be using like if you're gonna be using Liam, let's say your early game, you only have epic heroes as choices. Maybe Liam and Charlie. Maybe Liam and Edward. I'm not sure how I feel about Edward still. Like I definitely am like kind of on the ropes when it comes to Edward. You have all these other heroes that you could choose between. I mean, if I'm to choose between Liam and Charlie, always gonna go Charlie. You can always just decide based off that. With Park, I've already mentioned that Park and Freya, Park and all those other Rider heroes, they work. I wouldn't use like any of these nasty like gathering heroes or something as a duo, or even like Park and Akami or something. I never recommend using different troop types just because they don't really offer much, especially when you're using a troop type that's different from their skills. So overall, it's just not really worth it. So just running like Freya and Park, actually, I definitely recommend leading with Freya if anybody, just because of her talent build. But yeah, you guys get my point. Next is Alex. I only recommend using him as a support for his buffing skill towards tanks. If you don't have any options, maybe use him on like Jaden or something as like a filler, and try to throw him in the back line just so he can live as long as possible and just stay buffing those heroes. But overall, you guys get my point. Just having him as a support to a hero is pretty good. He's a gather hero, so I'd never even recommend using him as like a main hero. He doesn't have like a skill set that's necessarily built for it. He's just mostly there to buff. I don't recommend this hero at all. Never use gather heroes to fight. It's just not worth it. You're not trading well. You're going to be losing way more. It's just never worth it. I already mentioned Freya and Park, Freya and the other heroes. There's Charlie. Definitely recommend him as a good support. If I'm to lead with him, or if I'm like early game, he's possibly a lead. I mean, he has a decent talent build. He has a skill talent build right here. He has a leader talent build. He has a garrison, so he can kind of play all three at once. Pretty nice. I do think that Charlie is pretty good among the epic heroes, if not like one of the best, if not the best, with like Alex up there. There's Akami. I've already mentioned like a lot of these, just running like Akami and CO. You guys got that. Edward and like Liam, Edward and Charlie, Edward and possibly or one of these heroes if you really have to. I don't recommend him over some of these other heroes, but if you really don't have choices, just feel free to do it. But yeah, I do hope this video was somewhat helpful. I feel like I've gone through all of the necessary heroes. So, actually, you know what? I'll go through Jin real quick. He's kind of the same with Hank. Just Jin Lewis, Jin maybe Maya. I don't know how that would work. Jin Chun. I think those two might actually be kind of nasty if you're rallying something. As a rider duo. I don't know how good Chun will be, and I don't know if she will be better than Lewis in like the aspect of like being a rally support. But I do think that like to Jin definitely will be useful. Jin and Tom, Jin and Adot maybe, Jin and I mean you could always use rider heroes. Also, I made that fart sound with my mouth, guys. Don't think that was actually me. You could use like maybe Jin and a rider hero and run a rider rally, but I've definitely seen like Steven and Bella run together way more, and I've never really seen people try to use Jin as a leader to a rider rally, so I'm not really sure about that. Overall, I do hope this video was helpful. I know I blabbed, and I don't think that this video was really well put together, so I do hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope I didn't do a really bad job explaining. I can always try to redo this video maybe if it was really that bad. But yeah, I do hope you guys enjoyed as always, and I thank you guys for watching. So peace out. And you guys have a nice day.